Section 1. The Riddle of the Sphinx, a Timeless Mystery. The Great Sphinx of Giza is more than just a statue. It is a symbol of Egypt itself, an icon recognized across the entire world. For thousands of years it has rested silently in the sands, guarding the pyramids of my ancestors. Its body is that of a powerful lion. Its head is that of a king. This combination represents strength. This combination represents wisdom. When you stand before it, you cannot help but feel a sense of awe. You are looking at a monument that has witnessed the rise of empires. You are looking at a monument that has witnessed the fall of empires. It has seen pharaohs. It has seen conquerors come and go. It has survived the harshness of the desert. It has survived the passage of millennia, its gaze fixed on the eastern horizon, watching the sun rise each day as it has for ages. I have spent my entire life working among these ancient stones. As an archaeologist, I have dedicated my career to uncovering the secrets of my country's past. The Sphinx holds a special place in my heart, as it does for all Egyptians. It is a direct link to our glorious history. It is a tangible piece of the world of the pharaohs. I have walked around it. I have touched its weathered limestone. I have excavated the sands that have buried it many times over the centuries. Every time I see it, I feel the weight of its long history. It is not just a subject of study. It is a part of our national identity. The Sphinx is a keeper of stories. It is our job as guardians of this heritage to listen carefully to what it has to tell us about its creation and its purpose. Yet for all its fame, the Sphinx remains wrapped in mystery. It asks a riddle not with words, but with its very existence. Who built this colossal monument? When was it carved from the living bedrock of the Giza Plateau? Why was it made? What secrets does it still hold? These are not new questions. Travelers have asked them for centuries. Scholars have asked them for centuries. Dreamers have asked them for centuries. From the ancient Greeks who gave it the name Sphinx to the modern tourists who take pictures in front of it, everyone is captivated by its enigma. The silence of the Sphinx invites speculation. Where there is mystery, stories and theories are sure to grow like desert flowers after a rare rain. This enduring mystery is what makes the Sphinx so fascinating. It is a puzzle carved in stone on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. The statue is over 20 meters high and 73 meters long. It was not built from blocks like the pyramids. It was sculpted from a single massive outcrop of limestone. This feat of engineering is astonishing even by today's standards. The creators were masters of their craft. They left behind a monument that continues to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. It is this challenge that drives us forward, urging us to dig deeper. It urges us to analyze more closely. It urges us to separate the facts from the fantasies that have grown up around this incredible wonder of the ancient world. Section 2. Two worlds collide, myth versus science. The Sphinx has become a battleground for ideas. On one side, we have the world of science and archaeology. This is my world. Here, we rely on evidence that we can see and touch. Layers of earth, the style of the carving, the hieroglyphic inscriptions, the tools left behind. We use careful, methodical approaches to piece together the story of the past. Every artifact, piece of pottery, mark on a stone. Our conclusions are built upon decades of painstaking work by hundreds of experts from all over the globe. We believe the evidence points clearly to a specific time and a specific pharaoh, linking the Sphinx to the grand pyramid building age of the Old Kingdom. On the other side, myth, speculation, fringe theories. This world is often more dramatic and exciting. Lost civilizations, advanced ancient technologies, secret knowledge hidden from humanity. Books, documentaries, internet. They capture the public's imagination with tales of a much older Sphinx, perhaps 10,000 years old or more. They suggest it was built by a forgotten culture, maybe even survivors of the lost city of Atlantis. These stories are powerful because they tap into our desire for wonder, our suspicion that there is more to history than what we are told in textbooks. They offer simple answers to complex questions. The clash between these two worlds is at the heart of the Sphinx debate. As an archaeologist, I have seen many of these alternative theories come and go. They often rely on reinterpreting the evidence to fit a pre-existing story. For example, some look at the erosion on the Sphinx's body, claim it could only have been caused by thousands of years of heavy rainfall, not by wind, not by sand. They propose this as proof of an older origin, ignoring the complex geology of the Giza Plateau. These claims are presented as scientific breakthroughs, but they often lack the rigorous, peer-reviewed support that is the standard in the scientific community. It is a constant challenge to explain the careful, slow process of science against these exciting but unsupported narratives. My role and the goal of this essay is not to simply dismiss these other ideas. It is to present the evidence from both sides in a clear and balanced way. We must look at the facts as they are. What does the archaeology truly say? What do the geological studies show? What have modern scanning technologies revealed? Science is not about blind belief. It is about following the evidence wherever it leads. We must be open to new discoveries, but we must also be critical of claims that are not supported by solid proof. The Sphinx deserves nothing less than our most honest and thorough investigation. We owe it to this great monument and to our shared human history to seek the truth with open minds and scientific discipline. Section 3. Our Quest for Truth. Our Quest for Truth. The questions we must answer. To navigate this maze of fact and fiction, we must focus on the core questions at the center of the debate. Our quest for truth begins with the most fundamental question of all. How old is the Great Sphinx? Mainstream Egyptology places its construction in the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BCE. This ties the Sphinx to the second pyramid at Giza. Alternative theories propose a much older date, perhaps 10,000 BCE or earlier. To resolve this, we examine dating methods and weigh the evidence. The second major question: what caused the erosion patterns on the Sphinx and its enclosure walls? Some geologists point to deep vertical fissures as signs of prolonged rainfall. Others say the erosion results from a combination of factors, including wind, sand, morning dew moisture, and poor limestone quality. Understanding the Giza Plateau's geology is crucial. We'll examine types of erosion and what the stones reveal. Finally, claims of hidden chambers beneath the Sphinx. Stories of a hall of records under the paws have circulated for decades. The chamber is said to hold the lost history of an ancient civilization. Modern non-invasive tools let us peer underground. We have used ground-penetrating radar, seismic surveys, and cosmic ray detectors. What have these surveys actually found? We'll review results, explain methods, and discuss limits. That helps assess the plausibility of hidden spaces. We'll proceed like detectives on an ancient case. Our method: lay out all available evidence clearly and simply. We'll explain scientific techniques so everyone can follow. We'll present arguments from both mainstream archaeologists and proponents of alternative theories. We'll weigh evidence about the Sphinx's age, erosion, and possible hidden chambers. Then build a clear picture of what we know for certain, what we can reasonably infer, and what remains a mystery. Our journey is a search for truth, guided by logic, evidence, and respect for this magnificent monument. Section 1. The Orthodox View: A Pharaoh's Face in Stone. The mainstream accepted view among Egyptologists is that the Great Sphinx was carved during the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. This places its creation around 2500 BCE, a time of incredible architectural achievement in Egypt. Specifically, the monument is attributed to the pharaoh Khafre. We believe the Sphinx was created as part of the vast funerary complex that includes Khafre's pyramid, the second largest at Giza. The Sphinx was not a standalone project. It was an integral piece of a much larger sacred landscape. This understanding is the result of over a century of careful excavation, study, and analysis by archaeologists from around the world. It forms the foundation of what is taught in universities and displayed in museums. This conclusion is not based on a single piece of evidence, but on a convergence of many different clues. Think of it like a legal case where there isn't one single piece of smoking gun evidence, but many different threads that all point to the same suspect. The location of the Sphinx, its relationship to the surrounding temples and causeways, the style of its carving, and artifacts found nearby all work together to build a strong, coherent picture. The face of the Sphinx, though damaged over the millennia, bears a striking resemblance to other known statues of Khafra. Side-by-side comparisons highlight similarities in the jawline and brow. The royal headdress it wears, known as a nims, is also characteristic of pharaonic iconography from that specific period in Egyptian history. The purpose of the Sphinx in this view was deeply connected to the religious beliefs of the Old Kingdom. As a lion with the head of a king, it symbolized the pharaoh's divine power and connection to the sun god, Ra. The statue is perfectly aligned to the east, facing the rising sun. It stands as a guardian of the Giza necropolis, the city of the dead where Khafra and his father Khufu were laid to rest. The Sphinx Temple and the Valley Temple, located directly in front of the monument, were places for ritual and worship, linking the king's journey in the afterlife to the daily cycle of the sun. This explanation fits perfectly within our understanding of ancient Egyptian religion and the role of the pharaoh. This established theory is the bedrock of modern Egyptology. It is a conclusion built upon the principles of archaeological science, where context is everything. As I often say, you cannot study an artifact in isolation. The Sphinx is not just a statue, it is part of a complex site plan. Its connection to Khafra's pyramid complex is direct and unmistakable. The causeway, or stone road, leading from Khafra's pyramid temple runs right alongside the Sphinx enclosure. This architectural link is one of the strongest arguments for dating the Sphinx to Khafra's reign. It tells us that these structures were planned and built together as one magnificent and unified project dedicated to the king's eternal life. Archaeology is a science of layers, The deeper we dig, the further back in time we go. The objects we find in these layers provide critical clues for dating a site. Pottery, tools, the remains of buildings. Around the Sphinx, the archaeological context points overwhelmingly to the 4th dynasty. The temples built directly in front of the Sphinx are constructed from enormous limestone blocks. Sphinx Temple, Valley Temple. Some of these blocks were quarried directly from the ditch or enclosure that was excavated to create the body of the Sphinx. That shows the temples were built at the same time as the Sphinx, or immediately after. They are architecturally inseparable from the great statue itself. When we excavate these temples, their style is a perfect match for Old Kingdom architecture. Massive undecorated granite pillars, simple, powerful design. These are hallmarks of the pyramid builders' era. There are no inscriptions on the walls from the time of construction. Fragments of statues, pottery fragments. There is a complete absence of any earlier material. Tool, potsherd, inscription. If an older civilization had built the Sphinx, we'd expect to find some trace, but the sands preserved none. One of the most important pieces of evidence connecting the Sphinx to Khafra is the Dream Stela, a large granite slab placed between the Sphinx's paws by the pharaoh Thutmose IV around 1400 BCE. While this is 1,000 years after the Sphinx was built, the stela tells an important story. It recounts Prince Thutmose falling asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx and the statue speaking to him in a dream. The statue promised him the throne if he would clear away the sand that had buried it. In the inscription, the Sphinx is referred to as Horemakhet, Horus in the horizon. The text mentions the name of Khafre on one line, though surrounding words are damaged. This inscription from ancient times directly links the monument to Pharaoh Khafra. A diorite statue of Khafra was discovered by the French archaeologist Auguste Mariette in the 1850s. The statue was found buried upside down in a pit in the floor of the Valley Temple. That Valley Temple is the same one connected to the Sphinx by its causeway and built with blocks from its enclosure. Finding a pristine statue of this specific pharaoh in a temple geologically linked to the Sphinx is powerful contextual evidence. It's like finding a signed photograph of the owner inside a house. While it's not direct proof Khafra carved the Sphinx, it tightens the web of connections that place the monument within his pyramid-building project. The archaeological record is consistent and clear on this point. Beyond the location and associated temples, the artistic style of the Sphinx itself serves as a crucial dating tool. Ancient Egyptian art followed very strict rules and conventions, which evolved slowly over time. Art historians and archaeologists can often identify the period, and sometimes even the specific reign, in which a statue was created just by looking at its style. The face on the Great Sphinx, despite its erosion and damage, displays features that are hallmarks of the Old Kingdom, and specifically the Fourth Dynasty. The proportions of the face, the broadness of the nose before it was broken, the set of the eyes, and the shape of the lips. When we compare the Sphinx's face to confirmed portraits of Fourth Dynasty pharaohs, the resemblance to Khafra is particularly strong. Statues found in his Valley Temple, especially the famous diorite statue of Khafra now in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, show the same idealized, powerful, and serene royal image. The structure of the face, the royal Nemes headcloth with its distinctive pleats, and the presence of a royal cobra, or uraeus, on the brow though now broken off, all scream Fourth Dynasty pharaoh. There is no other period in Egyptian history where all these stylistic elements come together in this exact way. The statue is, in essence, a stylistic signature of Khafra's reign. Consider the alternative. If the Sphinx were from a much earlier period, say 10,000 BCE, its artistic style would be completely unique, with no known precedents or successors. A civilization capable of carving such a masterpiece would surely have produced other art, yet we have found nothing from that remote period that looks anything like it. The art we do have from prehistoric Egypt is much simpler, consisting of small figurines and rock carvings. It is a huge, unbelievable leap to suggest that a culture with no other known major artistic tradition suddenly produced the largest and one of the most sophisticated sculptures in human history, only for that style to vanish and then reappear, coincidentally, thousands of years later in the Old Kingdom. The argument from art history is therefore a powerful one. The Sphinx does not exist in an artistic vacuum. It fits perfectly into the known sequence of Egyptian artistic development. Djoser, Sneferu, Khufu, Khafra. The Sphinx is the ultimate expression of this development, combining the king's portrait with the powerful body of a lion. To claim it is older is to ignore this clear and logical progression. As the archaeologist Mark Lenner, who has spent decades excavating at Giza, states, "The Sphinx is a national portrait of a Fourth Dynasty king. It's the quintessential image of the Egyptian pharaoh." While the evidence for a Fourth Dynasty origin is strong, it has been challenged by a number of researchers who propose a much more ancient timeline. This alternative theory suggests that the Sphinx is far older than 2500 BCE, perhaps dating back to 10,000 BCE or even earlier. The main proponents of this idea are not mainstream Egyptologists, but come from other fields, such as geology and independent research. Their argument is not based on traditional archaeological evidence like pottery or inscriptions, because they agree that no such evidence from that era exists at the site. Instead, their case rests on two main pillars: geological analysis of the erosion patterns and astronomical alignments. The core idea is that the Giza Plateau was once home to a highly advanced, forgotten civilization that predates ancient Egypt as we know it. This lost culture, some speculate, could be the fabled Atlantis mentioned by the Greek philosopher Plato. According to this narrative, the Sphinx was one of their great monuments, and its true meaning and origin were forgotten over the millennia. When the pharaohs of the Old Kingdom rose to prominence, they did not build the Sphinx but merely found it already there, half buried in the sand. They then claimed it as their own, perhaps repairing it and carving its face into the likeness of their king, Khafre. This would explain why the head appears smaller in proportion to the lion's body. This theory gained significant public attention through the work of author John Anthony West, who was inspired by the earlier writings of the mystic R.A. Schwaller de Lubitsch. West brought a new angle to the debate by focusing on the geology of the monument. He argued that the mainstream explanation for the Sphinx's weathering, wind and sand erosion, was incorrect. He proposed that the deep vertical fissures on the body of the Sphinx and the walls of its enclosure were a classic sign of erosion caused by heavy and prolonged rainfall. Since Egypt's climate has been hyper-arid for the last 5,000 years, he reasoned that the Sphinx must have been carved during a much earlier, wetter period. This geological argument became the scientific centerpiece of the ancient Sphinx theory. To support it, West collaborated with geologist Dr. Robert Schoch from Boston University. After examining the monument in the early 1990s, Schoch concluded that the weathering patterns were indeed consistent with precipitation-induced erosion. He suggested that the core body of the Sphinx must be thousands of years older than its official date, pushing its origin back to at least 5,000 to 7,000 BCE, a time when the climate in Egypt was significantly rainier. This bold claim directly challenged the entire foundation of mainstream Egyptology and ignited a fierce and public debate that continues to this day, pitting geological interpretation against archaeological consensus. Section 5. The Water Weathering Hypothesis and the Geologist's Challenge. The Water Weathering Hypothesis, championed by Robert Schoch. It focuses on how the limestone of the Sphinx and its enclosure has eroded over time. The argument is simple and powerful. Different types of erosion leave different marks. Wind and sand erosion, common in a desert, tends to create horizontal, layered patterns. Water erosion from rainfall, on the other hand, tends to create deep, vertical channels as water runs down the face of the rock. Schoch argues the Sphinx's body, and more importantly, the enclosure walls show clear signs of this vertical, rain-induced weathering. He points to a deep, undulating weathering profile with rounded, rolling contours on the enclosure walls. He contrasts this with the erosion seen on other Old Kingdom tombs at Giza, carved from the same limestone layers. Those tombs, undisputedly from around 2500 BCE, show much shallower erosion patterns consistent with wind and sand. The difference in degree and type of erosion, he argues, proves the Sphinx and its enclosure must be much older. They must have stood exposed to thousands of years of heavy rainfall during the Neolithic subpluvial, which ended long before the time of Khafre. This geological argument directly refutes the mainstream archaeological timeline. If the Sphinx was exposed to a rainy climate for millennia, it simply cannot date to 2500 BCE, when the desert was already well established. Proponents suggest the head of the Sphinx, which shows less severe erosion, may have been recarved by Khafre or another pharaoh. The disproportionately small size of the head compared to the massive lion body is offered as supporting evidence. They speculate the original head might have been that of a lion or another figure, which became so badly eroded it had to be sculpted down into a pharaoh's face. However, this hypothesis has been strongly contested by other geologists and Egyptologists. Critics argue Schoch's analysis oversimplifies the complex geology of the Giza Plateau. The Sphinx is carved from 3 different layers of limestone: the top layer, middle layer. The lowest layer, forming the lion's body, is notoriously weak and porous. Geologists like James Harrell have argued this poor-quality rock is highly susceptible to weathering from groundwater seepage and to moisture from morning dew, which can mimic rainfall erosion. Furthermore, the practice of burying the Sphinx in wet sand for long periods could have caused salts and moisture to leach into the stone. That leaching can cause the stone to crumble in a way that looks like water damage. The debate becomes a technical one about the specific properties of the local limestone. Section 6. Weighing the timelines. Evidence versus interpretation. When we weigh the two competing timelines for the Sphinx's origin, we face a classic conflict between different types of scientific evidence. On one side, the Fourth Dynasty theory, supported by contextual archaeological evidence, architectural layout of the Giza Plateau, stylistic analysis of the sculpture, artifacts from the adjacent temples, textual references, like the Dream Stela. All these different threads weave together into a consistent narrative. They place the Sphinx squarely in the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BCE. This is the consensus view because it aligns with everything we know about Old Kingdom Egypt. On the other side, the ancient Sphinx theory rests almost entirely on a single geological interpretation. The argument that water erosion proves a greater age is compelling, especially to a non-specialist. However, it requires dismissing or ignoring the archaeological evidence. If the Sphinx is 10,000 years old, where is the rest of its culture? Cities, tools, pottery, graves, other artworks. There is a complete archaeological void for any such civilization at Giza. The theory creates a historical anomaly, a single, massive, sophisticated monument in total isolation. Critics of the water-weathering hypothesis point to several geological counter-arguments. The Sphinx has been buried and re-excavated many times throughout its history. For most of its life, it was covered up to its neck in sand. That sand would have held moisture. Wetting and drying cycles could drive decay. Salt crystallization within the porous lower limestone layers can also cause the observed patterns of decay. The Giza Plateau is not a uniform block of stone. It's riddled with natural fissures and varying rock quality. Erosion may simply follow pre-existing weaknesses in the bedrock, not an ancient rainy climate. Ultimately, the archaeological case for a Fourth Dynasty origin remains far stronger and more comprehensive. It's based on multiple independent lines of evidence that converge on the same conclusion. The water-weathering hypothesis is an interesting geological puzzle, but it fails to provide a plausible historical context. For the ancient Sphinx theory to be accepted, proponents would need supporting archaeological evidence. As Mark Lenner has said, if the Sphinx was built in 7000 or 5000 BC, there ought to be other evidence for the culture that built it. We have not a shred of that. Until such evidence is discovered, the connection to Khafre and the Old Kingdom remains the only theory that fits all the facts. Section 1. A verdict carved in stone. Synthesizing the evidence. Our journey through the evidence and myths, through the sands of time, from the age of the pyramid builders to the high-tech explorations of the 21st century. We have placed the evidence on the scales, weighing the archaeological consensus against the challenging alternative theories. After careful consideration of all the facts presented, a clear verdict emerges. The conclusion supported by the overwhelming weight of evidence is that the Great Sphinx of Giza was carved around 2500 BCE. It was created as an integral part of the vast funerary complex of the Fourth Dynasty pharaoh, Khafre. This verdict is not based on a single piece of proof, but on a powerful convergence of multiple, independent lines of evidence that form a strong and coherent historical narrative. The archaeological context provides the most compelling argument. The Sphinx is not an isolated statue. Its location, orientation, the temples built in front of it. The very blocks of the Sphinx temple were quarried from the enclosure around the Sphinx, proving they were created together. The artistic style of the face, despite its damage, aligns perfectly with the known royal portraiture of the Old Kingdom, particularly that of Khafre. Furthermore, the complete absence of any artifacts, no tools, No pottery, no graves, from a supposed earlier civilization at this highly excavated site, makes the idea of a 10,000-year-old Sphinx historically untenable. It remains a theory without a culture. Similarly, the sensational claims of a hidden hall of records beneath the Sphinx's paws do not stand up to scrutiny. While remote sensing surveys did detect anomalies in the bedrock, these ambiguous signals are best explained as natural fissures, cracks, changes in the limestone layers, which are known to be abundant on the Giza Plateau. The most definitive evidence comes from direct investigation. The drilling we conducted into the very locations of these anomalies revealed nothing but solid rock and natural sand-filled cracks. The legend of a lost library is a powerful and romantic tale, but it is one that at present has no foundation in physical reality. The alternative theories, while popular and thought-provoking, ultimately fail to provide the evidence needed to overturn the established history. The water weathering hypothesis, the cornerstone of the ancient Sphinx theory, rests on a geological interpretation that is not universally accepted even by geologists and is contradicted by strong counter-arguments involving salt weathering and the poor quality of the local stone. To accept these fringe claims, one must dismiss a vast and interconnected body of archaeological fact in favor of a single, disputed interpretation. Therefore, the most rational and evidence-based conclusion is that the Sphinx is a glorious monument of the Fourth Dynasty, a true child of Egypt's Pyramid Age. Section 2. The Path Forward. What could change the story? Science is never a closed book. Our current understanding of the Sphinx is based on the best evidence available today. We must remain open to new discoveries that could challenge our conclusions. What kind of discovery would change the mainstream view? What would it take to prove the Sphinx is significantly older? What would it take to prove it hides a secret chamber? Acknowledging this is a strength of science, not a weakness. A theory that cannot be challenged is dogma, not science. One piece of evidence won't overturn the dating. Proponents need clear, unambiguous, in situ archaeological evidence for the proposed period, e.g., 10,000 BCE. Tools, pottery, inscriptions, burial sites found in layers beneath Old Kingdom structures. New interpretations of erosion alone aren't sufficient. We would need an undisturbed, sealed context directly associated with the Sphinx's construction. That is what could rewrite the history books. Without it, the ancient Sphinx idea remains a hypothesis seeking evidence. Hidden chambers demand a high bar of proof, but are more accessible with tech. GPR surveys have been inconclusive. Seismic surveys also show limits. A full comprehensive scan using muon radiography could provide a definitive answer. If a muon scan revealed a large, well-defined void with a clear geometric shape in the bedrock, that would be compelling and hard to dismiss as a fissure. Such a find would justify further direct investigation, micro-camera exploration through a small drill hole. This path forward requires rigorous, open-minded, collaborative research. Embrace new technologies that probe the past with precision and minimal destruction. Keep clear distinctions, possible versus probable versus proven. Patient, methodical research, not sensationalism, will reveal the Sphinx's remaining secrets. Section 3. The Enduring Guardian, a Legacy of Wonder and Inquiry. After weighing every piece of evidence, considering every argument, we stand once more before the Great Sphinx. It remains majestic and enigmatic, its stone gaze fixed on the horizon. Our scientific investigation points to Khafra's reign, yet that conclusion doesn't diminish its power to inspire. Created with simple tools and immense ambition by ancient Egyptians 4,500 years ago, it's a more profound story than lost civilization tales. A testament to human ingenuity and vision, more than an archaeological puzzle, a cultural touchstone for all humanity. For millennia, it stood as a silent guardian, not just of the Giza pyramids, but of enduring history and deep mystery. It invites big questions about our past, about who we are, about what we can achieve. Debates swirl about its age, its meaning, its secrets. Those debates keep curiosity alive and push us to re-examine and refine our methods. The Sphinx challenges us to be better scientists and thoughtful students of history. As guardian of Egypt's antiquities, my duty is to preserve this treasure for future generations. That means physical conservation and preserving its true story, grounded in evidence. Continue studying with respect and scientific rigor, using the best tools available. Share what we learn clearly and honestly, separating proven facts from appealing fantasies. Honor the legacy of its ancient builders. In the end, the greatest secret may be its ability to endure. It survived the rise and fall of dynasties, the shifting sands, and the progression of centuries. It has watched our human story unfold and will watch long after we're gone. The Sphinx needs no Atlantis. Its true greatness is a colossal feat of ancient engineering, a divine royal portrait, an eternal symbol of ancient Egypt, forever guardian of Giza, inviting us to look, wonder, and seek the truth.